Penguin Random House Audio presents The Innovation Delusion. How Our Obsession with the New Has Disrupted the Work That Matters Most, by Lee Vinsel and Andrew L. Russell. Read for you by Rob Shapiro. Never set out to innovate, because more horror is done with that goal in mind than any other. Charles Eames, legendary designer. Another flaw in the human character is that everybody wants to build, and nobody wants to do maintenance. Kurt Vonnegut. Part 1. Chapter 1. The Problem with Innovation. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of a message, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. For want of a nail. Undated poem. The explosions started at 8 a.m. with a spark from a bookstore furnace. Gas had leaked from a corroded local storage tank and into the city sewers overnight, and the cloud of vapor wound its way around the system before escaping through the floor drains of downtown stores. The explosions rocked 4 buildings in all. Nobody was hurt, but authorities evacuated 20,000 people from a 13-block area. It was an unpleasant start to a cold April morning in St. John, a small town in the Canadian province of New Brunswick. On that day in 1986, 4 of the buildings directly above the leak were badly damaged, but one of their neighbors, located within the same radius, was spared. Why? The person who knows the answer, Heidi Overhill, let us in on the secret. Her late father, T. Douglas Overhill, ran an engineering consulting firm specializing in preventive maintenance. His favorite poem, which we quoted earlier, was For Want of a Nail, a paean to the far-reaching consequences of neglected maintenance. One of Overhill's clients, the owner of an office building in St. John, had been following a plan Heidi's father designed for maintaining the property. Heidi described it to us in detail. One of the scheduled tasks was to pour a bucket of water down each of the basement floor drains. Floor drains tend to dry out, and when there is no water in the S-shaped traps in the drain pipes, bad smells and explosive gases from the sewers can leak up through them. The fix for this problem is simple. A bucket of water every now and then will seal the trap and make the basement smell better. On the day of the explosions, the surviving building belonged to Overhill's client, who had recently poured a bucket of water into the floor drain to seal it. But the owners of the neighboring stores that were damaged had followed no such plan. In real life, as in Overhill's favorite poem, the kingdom was lost, and all for the want of maintenance. Do you ever get the feeling that everyone around you worships the wrong gods? That through fluke or oversight, our society's charlatans have been cast as its heroes, and the real heroes have been forgotten? In a 2009 interview, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, reflecting on his young company's success, shared what has become a mantra for our times. One of the core values of Facebook is move fast and break things. Unless you are breaking some stuff, you are not moving fast enough. Rapid growth is the sine qua non of the digital economy. Just ask anybody who has owned stock in Google, Apple, Facebook, or Amazon. New features draw new users and more revenue from advertisers and subscribers, which helps companies secure more funding and hire more people. Digital upstarts like Facebook succeed when they displace incumbents. That is why Zuckerberg was comfortable with the costs of taking risks. One of the trade-offs that we made, he later remarked, was we tolerated some defects in the product. This tactic works in the digital economy, where users are accustomed to beta releases and flaky connections, and the costs of fixing broken code pale in comparison to the costs of fixing a physical product. such as a car with faulty airbags or a bookstore with dried-out floor drains. In other words, move fast and break things is something more than a juvenile crack from a CEO who was 25 years old at the time he said it. It's a business strategy, an ethos that applies equally to product development and to Facebook's aggressiveness in buying out potential rivals, such as WhatsApp and Instagram. Zuckerberg wasn't alone in this outlook. At least since the dot-com crash of 2001, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business school professors flouted common sense with buzzwords like disruptive innovation and creative destruction, not to mention the imperative to fail faster to succeed sooner. This approach quickly became recognized as the startup mentality, and innovation was its prime directive, a demand for rapid growth that disrupts the comfortable incumbents of the status quo. To be sure, this innovation mindset led to some amazing things. 16 years after being launched, Facebook has more than 2 billion users around the world. Billions more would have a hard time functioning without constant access to Google or an iPhone. As business leaders embraced this worldview, its effects spilled out beyond the economy. We adjusted our values, even our vision of democracy, to be suitably deferential to the gods of Silicon Valley. We tolerated increasing amounts of screen time for our children and pledged our attention to addictive apps. A 2018 Georgetown University survey found that Americans trust Amazon and Google more than local, state, or federal government. In early 2016, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal even floated the idea of a new political party that could bring radical disruption to establishment America. The leaders of this movement could come from Silicon Valley, perhaps Mark Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg, or another of its heroes, and they could call it the Innovation Party. After all, the essay concluded, who was against innovation? The new political party failed fast, never moving past the op-ed phase. Novelty is at the core of American identity. How many of our cities have names that begin with new? Since the 16th century, we've been pushing stubbornly past frontiers of all kinds to reap the bounties of natural resources, political autonomy, and scientific progress. In the 21st century, our new digital gadgets were self-evident emblems of the superiority of the innovation mindset. The companies that made these gadgets and their killer apps grew until they were the most highly valued corporations in world history. Their lush corporate campuses became coveted destinations for college graduates. Their executives became icons. A nation mourned in 2011 when Apple's CEO Steve Jobs died. Serial entrepreneur Elon Musk was named among 2019's most admired people in America, ahead of Pope Francis and the Dalai Lama, but a significant distance behind Barack Obama and Donald Trump, America's disruptor-in-chief. And so, Americans went all in on innovation. Businesses created new positions like Chief Innovation Officer and Innovation Evangelist. Universities invested millions of dollars to build flashy new innovation centers, and philanthropists supported ambitious proposals for transforming some of our most basic cultural institutions. Schools at the K-12 level disrupted education by introducing laptops and tablets into the classroom, and seeking to instill characteristics like grit, entrepreneurialism, and design thinking in their students. Millennials in the job market reported feeling worthless and burned out if their creative exploits fell short of their own expectations or those of people they followed on Instagram. The result of all this change is dubious. In most cases, advocates cannot show that the efforts to stoke innovation have delivered on their promises. But that hasn't stopped Americans from upending centuries of tradition in the name of newfangled fads. The entrepreneurs and investors of Silicon Valley have profited from software, and this success has given them the capital and confidence to branch out into other fields. But while Zuckerberg's advice to move fast and break things is still considered good counsel for web designers and app
Sample complete. Ready to continue?